with something like that, what we need to do is we need to get a standard operating procedure in place with clear documentation, some kind of a qualification and approval process, and then a monitoring system in place, right? So the reason I can kind of, the reason that's pretty easy transition for me to make mentally is because we would have to do this kind of thing sometimes in the SEAL teams. When you get, for instance, you're overseas on deployment in a war zone, and you get some guys that show up to work halfway through the deployment or 2 months into deployment or 3 weeks before deployment ends. You get some guys that show up. They're SEALs, right? So they understand the fundamental concepts, but you haven't worked with them specifically before. They haven't worked with the platoon before. They don't know the area of operations that you're in specifically. They don't know what kind of mission specifically you're conducting and where the intel is coming from. Basically, they don't know anything other than the fundamental knowledge of being a SEAL. But as far as that particular job goes, they don't know too much. So what you have to do is you have to run them through a bunch of familiarization stuff very quickly about the gun trucks and how your Humvees are set up. You got to make sure they can get on a 50 cal and a Mark 48 and a Mark 19 and understand our crew served weapons and how we operate them, because our crew served weapons, by the way, a lot of times most of the time operate our crew served weapons alone. So they got to make sure they can do this. Humvees, right? A lot of the older guys in the SEAL teams before the war started, they wouldn't know how to operate a Humvee. So you had to make sure they knew how to do that. They had to understand the mission, why we were doing the mission, what was important about it, what was the commander's intent. They had to know the rules of engagement. Because the military will take a guy that lands in country and they'll give him like a 30-minute brief to welcome to in country, and 30 seconds of it'll be a rules of engagement brief, and they won't really understand it. So you got to make sure they understand that. You got to. When's the last time they did medical training? When's the last time they did that? Has it been like 12 years since they put on a tourniquet? Okay, not good. We got to get them familiarized on that. How they're going to stop the bleeding, the different IED threats that are out there, because the IED threats change all the time. What kind of trigger mechanisms are being used and what kind of identifying marks are for IED. So there's all this stuff. The list goes on. And so you have to develop some kind of a standard operating procedure. Hey, when a guy shows up, this is what we need to do with them. Boom, they need to go through this. This little checklist you put together. And then if the person's a leader, maybe you got to go and do a couple left seat, right seat rides with them. So does that make, do other people use that terminology, left seat, right seat?
Not that I know.
Okay, so if I was the platoon commander and you were coming in to take over for me, we would plan a mission together and I would be in charge of the mission.
Yeah.
So I'd be in the driver's seat.
Oh, like a pilot, co-pilot.
Yeah, and
switch.
you'd be in the next seat. You'd be you'd be watching, and you'd be in the passenger seat, and I would be running everything. And then maybe we do that a couple times, and you're just watching me. And then we switch seats. You get in the driver's seats, but I'm still there watching and telling you to move a little left and move a little right. And then eventually you got it, and then I'm going to leave, go home.
Yeah.
So maybe if the person's a leader, you got to do 2 or 3 or 4 ops or whatever to get them a good turnover. So now in all these situations, or if it's not a full-on turnover, because that you're going to walk away from, but if it's just you've got some other group, small entity or people that are coming in, you're not going to be able to give them that full 100% decentralized command, right? You're still going to have to keep a little bit more watch on them, because you're not going to build up the full level of trust in 1 to 3 months. That's just not possible. So there will be a little bit of limitations, but you can definitely move pretty far down the path. And one other thing that's going to help, like I said, document, and that's really smart to put together a document with very clear roles and responsibilities and expectation, and then not just give them the document and say, hey, read this later. No. You sit down and go over every single thing with them. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to condense this timeline of building trust into the shortest possible time. And one of the ways you do that is by condensing everything into a simple, clear, concise format, written format, go through, talk it with them so they understand it and can do it very clearly. Like when I was in Task Unit Bruiser, I didn't lay anything like that out for the platoon commanders, for Leif and the Delta platoon commander. I didn't say, here's the rules. And I did that over a long period of time, over a year workup. Now within a few months, they kind of knew what the deal was. But if that would have been my normal job and I would have been getting a new platoon commanders every 3 months, every time they came in, I'll be like, all right, you're new platoon commanders. This is what a platoon commander does. This is the rules and responsibilities. This is the expectations that I have for you. This is when you call me. This is when you make a decision on your own. Lay all that stuff perfectly clear. And that way I could more quickly develop a sense of decentralized command. Now, again, it's not going to be full decentralized command. You're not going to be able to just let somebody run with it. They've only been with you for 3 months. And, I don't know what the timeline is for a vascular surgeon to get total trust in their subordinate vascular surgeons or their subordinate team members. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure it takes longer than 1 to 3 months. So how much can you condense the timeline? What can you do to condense it? Once you get it condensed as much as you can, you're still going to have to do a little bit more monitoring than you would normally do. But it is still going to be beneficial. It's going to be beneficial for them, and it will be beneficial for you to operate as much as you can in the decentralized methodology. Decentralized command is about trust, right?
Yeah.
If I trust you and you trust me, it goes up and down. If I'm in charge and I trust you, that means you're going to go out and you know what to do.
Yeah.
And when you're out there, you trust that I am going to cover for you and I'm going to trust the decisions that you make. Right. So decentralized command is about trust. In order to have trust, we have to have understanding. And in order to understand things, we have to work together. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to condense the timeline that it takes us to build trust. And how do I do that? I just am very direct and lay things out in a very simple, clear, concise format so that you can understand it.
Gotcha.
Very quickly. Skipping the chain of command is a last resort. It is a last resort. Why is it a last resort? Because when you skip the chain of command, you're breaking the trust I just talked about. You're breaking it. The relationship that you've been building, you're damaging it. It's not good. Sometimes it's unsalvageable, by the way. Sometimes when you skip the chain of command, you will never be able to recover from that. Now, of course, if there's something that your immediate superior is doing that's illegal or immoral or unethical, if that's the case, then it's actually your duty to go above them in the chain of command. Now, do you still first report it to them? And say, hey, what you did is wrong. We're not going to do that. Yes, you should tell them first, unless it's going to, cause you to get in some horrible situation. Now, this is an interesting thing that I thought about. Let's say you and I are working together,
sure,
and you're my boss, and let's say you're doing something that's immoral, illegal, unethical, right? And I watch you do it. And I see you leaning towards it. I'm like, oh, I think he's going to do something that's illegal right here. And I don't say anything. And then I watch you do it. And then I run up the chain of command, report you, and bust you, right? You got to be careful with that. And I think when you work for someone or when someone works for you, you need to lay it right out of the gate. Like, hey, this is where I stand. Like, I'm not going to cover for you if you do some stupid illegal things. Yeah. You don't wait for them to do it and then drop the hammer on them. Maybe I'm being overly fair, and maybe we should be all out to get people that are, doing something that they shouldn't be doing.
Part of the problem.
Yeah, I actually believe, that's my belief, is when I meet you and I say, hey, Echo, what's going on? And you make a little crack, you make a little joke. Mm-hmm. You say, well, it's not like the customers can really see that money. Let's say you're going to skim money from somebody, right? Yeah, that. And you you make a little joke like that. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is testing the waters with me, right?
Yeah,
you're testing my ethical morals. I'd be like, yeah, there's no way they would ever know. And besides, we pretty much work for it anyways, right? You're going to see if you're going to get that reaction with me. Yeah. So we just. Sometimes we got a little charge a little extra on that install, right? Maybe we're some kind of installers at a house, and you go, yeah, I usually throw a little upcharge on here. They never know if that's type of wall, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You throw that test at me. It's my duty. If I'm the type of person that's going to report you for skimming money from the customers, then I should tell you like, hey man, that's not cool. No, those customers, here's my view: is those customers that we're out there trying to do this install for, they had to work hard for that money, and I don't want to be taking it from them. Now you kind of know.
Yeah.
You better not be doing that in front of me.
Yeah.
As opposed to me smiling and going along with your joke, and then 3 months later, I report, I turn over a report to the boss man.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's very ethical either.
Yeah, it's kind of like
to mislead you. It's a little bit of a backstab.
Yeah.
Now, are there cases, of course, where somebody's doing something that's just outrageously unethical and you didn't know about it or something? You pretty much know, though. You can tell when people are doing shady things.
Yeah.
So I think that is something. Okay, so let me close this thought, or at least make a point of this thought. My point of this thought is it's the same thing that happens a lot where people don't like to have hard conversations.
Yeah.
So it's an easy conversation when you say, those customers never know where their money goes and it's only $12 a thing and it's no big deal. The easiest thing for me to do is to smile and say, yeah. Right? That's the easy, and that's not that big of a deal, right? It gets so much harder. The further we go down that road, it gets harder and harder and harder, because then you start saying, hey, it's only, we've been skimming like $12. Guess what? They never noticed this other charge either, and I can get them for $62. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's a harder conversation. So have the hard conversation earlier. It'll make it easier for you. So that being said, now how do we escalate above you in the chain of command? First of all, my goal is to not escalate above you in the chain of command. My goal is to actually raise the situation to you and bring it up to you and say, hey, Echo, the way we've been doing this job, I think we should do it a different way. I think there's a better way to do it. I think there's a better way to treat the customer, whatever the thing is, better way to attack this target, whatever the thing is. And I'm going to have that conversation with you like 2, 3, 4, 5 times to try and get you to listen to me. Now, if the conversation doesn't work, I'm going to escalate it even further. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually do a little write-up. I'm going to write a point paper. I'm going to say, Echo, I was listening, thinking about what we're doing, how we're hitting this target, or how we're loading out our guys, or whatever. And I'm going to write you a point paper, and I'm going to lay it out for you. I'm going to lay out what my plan is, what the cost benefits are, and make that very clear to you. So that way I'm giving you every ample opportunity to listen to what I'm saying, right? And I'm probably even going to say, hey, maybe we should run this by, the boss to see what they think. Yeah. Because if you just keep disagreeing with me and I say, you mind if I bring this to the boss and see what he thinks? Yeah. Now, what are you going to say to that? Most immediates are not going to be happy, but I'm giving you a heads up, right? Because I'm just trying to play open. So you say, and you might get a boss that goes, yeah, bring it to him. He's going to say the same thing I'm telling you. And then you go, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about this procedure. Or maybe I'm wrong about how we're going to attack this target. But it is, and also this is a hard conversation to have. It's a hard conversation to say to someone, man, can we just bring this to the boss? And again, I'm not saying you say, hey, I'm going to bring this to the boss.
Right,
no, you say, hey, would you mind if I got his opinion? Yeah. Would you mind if I see what she said about this? And that way we're not saying I'm going to the boss. I'm going above your head. You can't stop me. No, that's not what I'm talking about. So there's that. The other thing that you can, so that's sort of a direct approach with your immediate boss, which starts, by the way, with an indirect approach of being like, hey, Echo, I was thinking about the way we're hitting these targets. Wouldn't it be smart maybe if we hit him from over here? Do you think that would work? And now we're just opening up the conversation. So we've done that. I can also go indirect with your boss, right? So your direct boss, who's now 2 up above me in the chain of command, I can go indirect with him at the water fountain. Sure. Right?
Yep.
Hey, oh yeah, thanks, boss. Yeah, everything's going great. Yeah, doing a great job. Yeah, I'm on Echo's team. Yeah, no, it's really good. It's good. It's a tough mission, but we're always exploring new ways to do it. We're looking at some other options. I was thinking of another way to hit those targets too, kind of like coming in from this direction. Oh, that's all I did was just drop plant a little seed,
Sure.
Have that conversation come up, and that's what I'm going to do. Plant the little seeds and try and get them to maybe say, oh, that sounds like a really good idea. What did Echo think of that? Actually, I haven't talked to Echo about it in full detail, but I will. Mm-hmm. Now I go back, hey man, the boss asked me about this, and he was mentioning, I mentioned this other way of doing it, and he thought it might be a good idea, and I just want to give you a heads up in case he says anything. I didn't really have a chance, whatever. So we're playing the game a little bit. When they hit you with something that they're angry at, the thing that's hitting back is ego. That's what's hitting back. So first thing you got to do is, okay, I'm going to check my ego right now because I'm going to win the long war. In fact, you have to be careful when you stay calm when everyone else is angry. You have to actually be careful not to come across as aloof or arrogant.
Yeah.
Like when people are getting mad, Okay. For instance, if your wife is super mad about something and you show no emotions and you don't get mad at all, they get madder sometimes, right?
Yeah.
You don't even care about this,
Yeah.
you know? So no, so you gotta give a little bit, you know? I'm not saying it, you know, a little bit of, hey, I get it, right? But then what you want to do is absorb. Oh, they want to get mad? Cool. Absorb, take the screaming, give the head nod of understanding in a only marginally emotional way that pretty much communicates that I understand you're mad and I'm listening and I hear you. You know, I get it. And let them get it out of their system. Just let them get it out of their system. Then let them calm down. And then after you've given them the time to kind of calm down and settle down, and I mean, it's longer than you think. It's longer than you think. Let them when you think they're calm, wait an extra 45 minutes, if not 2 hours, probably 2 hours, because they're not calm.
To be safe,
they just stop screaming, right? They're not calm. So, and then what you do is you kind of take it on yourself. You're gonna own it, right? And you say something like, "Hey, you know that thing that made you mad? I want to make sure it doesn't happen again. What can I do better to make sure that you don't get mad about that?" Right? You take ownership of that. What do I need to adjust? And what exactly is it that I did that frustrated you? What is it that frustrated you? What can I do to stop it? Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe you're mad at the printer. Sure. But, you know, how can we fix that? Because I don't want you to. And then, you know, so you have that kind of conversation. And, you know, you're going to slide something tactfully in there. Tactfully, because, again, you're still dealing with, like, you know, possible flare-up scenarios happening. So, you know, but you say something like, you know, we both know that nobody benefits when people lose their temper, right? I mean, we got to be careful. You know, it doesn't do us any good when people lose their temper. Everyone knows that, right? So you slide those things in there. You're giving that kind of like a little mini lecture indirectly about what's happening. And then when you have other conversations, now we're in just a normal day-to-day thing. You drop things about temper. You know, you talk about temper being, well, you know, it's a weakness and it's, no one makes good decisions when they lose their temper. I mean, it's some of the dumbest things I've ever done was when I lost, you know, everyone knows that, but you know, you start sliding those things in there that it's bad for your decision making, it's bad for relationships, it's bad for your health, it's bad for life. And again, you're not directly saying these things, you're subliminally saying them. You know, it's, man, I remember one time I lost some of the dumbest things I ever did when I lost my temper, and I kicked the wall and I broke my toe and I put a hole in the wall and the landlord came. God, that's when I hate when I lose my temper. And you start getting them you get them thinking about it over time, and this is the thing, it's a long war, and there's going to be relapses along the way, but you got to just hold the line, keep it steady, absorb, and then flank gently to get them to start self-recognizing where they're at and what their temper does to them. Temper's crazy.
Yeah,
when you see people lose their temper, it's a total loss of control.
Yeah.
It's a total loss of control. And it's just doesn't do anybody any good. And when you see someone that really loses their temper, you're like, what is wrong? Man?
Yeah.
Come on. The way to win in a battle, according to military science, is to know the rhythms of the specific opponents and use rhythms that your opponents do not expect, producing formless rhythms from rhythms of wisdom. And this is just so classic. And you think about it on the battlefield, this is what maneuver warfare is, right? This is tempo. They talk about it in terms of tempo. When Brian Stan was on, he's talking about maintaining that tempo. And then what you need to do is you need to maintain the faster tempo than your enemy can maintain. And when you can maintain that tempo, or you disrupt the tempo, or you disrupt their tempo, that's how you're going to achieve victory. Obviously, it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. I'm keeping you, I'm pressing one side, boom, I disrupt, I go the other side, boom, I just passed your guard. I break your tempo. And even in basketball or soccer, that change of pace. You know, you come down the field going at a certain speed, then you speed up, slow down, and you change that tempo. That's how you pass. When you get someone off tempo, or when someone has me off tempo, because now you're chasing them. You're trying to hang on, and things are happening, and you don't know it. When you want to attack, you remain calm and quiet. Then get the jump on your opponent by attacking suddenly and quickly. You can preempt by being outwardly powerful and swift while inwardly leaving reserves. You can also get the jump by stealing your mind to the utmost, accelerating your pace a bit, and making a violent attack the instant you get up close to the opponent. In case the opponent attacks swiftly, you attack calmly yet powerfully. When the opponent gets close, tighten your bearing with absolute resolve, and when the opponent shows signs of slacking, overcome him with force immediately. Then again, when an opponent attacks calmly and quietly, accelerate your own attack slightly, with your body lightly buoyant. When the opponent gets close, clash once, and then, adapting to his condition, overcome him forcefully. So this is what these are. And what's important about these is that understanding what's happening before you enter the situation. So let me give you an example. You hear this all the time in MMA. There's certain MMA fighters that come out of the gate blazing. And you hear all the time, oh, this guy, he knows he's got to weather the storm.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what, oh, you're going to attack me? I'm going to remain calm. You're going all out, going crazy, getting nuts even.
Yeah.
And what am I doing? I'm just going to remain calm, just going to take the hits. I'm going to defend. I'm going to let you, and I'm going to do it with resolve. Just going to be calm, normal face, boom, we're good. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to wear yourself out, and then I'm going to attack.
Yep.
As opposed to, if you come out, you're all nonchalant, I might come at you hard to overcome you while you're not mentally prepared for the chaos I'm going to bring to you. Letting go four hands is when you and an opponent are in a deadlock and no progress is being made in the fight. It means that when you think you are going to get into a deadlock, you stop right away and seize victory by taking advantage of a different approach. In large-scale military science as well, if there is total deadlock and no progress is being made, there will be a loss of personnel. It is essential to stop right away and seize victory by taking advantage of a tactic unsuspected by the enemy. In individual martial arts, also, if you think you are getting into a deadlock, then it is essential to immediately change your approach, ascertain the opponent's state, and determine how to win by means of a very different tactic. This is something you see a lot, and you see that in everything. In everything, you see it in war, you see it in jiu-jitsu, you see it in fighting, you see it in business. People, they get to a position, and there's some comfort. There's some level of comfort. If you and I lock up, and you're in my half guard, and you're not really going anywhere, and I'm not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere. There's a level of comfort there.
Yeah.
Like, why should I take risk doing something else?
Right.
And so
Safe.
we don't mind being deadlocked. Now, what's important about this is, he's saying as soon as you sense it, that's got to be the hard part. As soon as you sense there's a deadlock, that's when you should make the change, because the longer I wait, the more settled it becomes and the harder it is to break out of that deadlock.
Yeah.
Movement is so critical. Mental, physical movement is so critical. That's why when something is going bad, like let's say you're in a public place and something's going bad, a terrorist comes in and starts screaming, shooting, you move immediately. Your instinct has got to be to move immediately. What you don't want to do is freeze, stop, hold, which is a very human instinct, right? It's a very human instinct to freeze and just take cover.
Right.
Now, there's shooting going on, depending on the kind of shooting. If there's heavy machine gun fire, like that, yes, you have to get down because there's bullets flying all over the place.
Yeah.
If the bullets are slowly going, bop, 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 that means someone's taking aim and shooting.
Yeah.
So if you stay still, you're going to get shot. If you hear that steady pace, you go.
Yeah.
You go. You zigzag. You take cover. Then you bound to another position. You move as fast as you can.
Yeah.
That quick movement before the deadlock settles in is when you want to do it. When someone's about to in a situation like a physical confrontation, don't let it get there. Make a move before it gets there.
Yeah.
Which, hopefully means you leave. You walk away. Before the guy bows up to you and starts getting in your face, you're already gone. Didn't even let it get there. Because now we're going to a situation where we're going to have to make something happen.
Yeah.
Mountain and sea means that it is bad to do the same thing over and over again. You may have to repeat something once, but it should not be done a third time. When you try something on an opponent, if it does not work the first time, you will not get any benefit out of rushing to do it again. Change your tactics abruptly, doing something completely different. If that still does not work, then try something else. Thus, the science of martial arts involves the presence of mind to act and see where the enemy is like a mountain, and act as a mountain when the enemy is like a sea. This requires careful reflection. So what's interesting about this is there is a benefit if you, in jiu-jitsu and on the battlefield, if you try something and you see the reaction, now you know the reaction.
Yeah.
And you try it again, if you automatically counter the reaction, that's a great setup.
Yeah.
Dean will do three times. He'll do something 3 times. He'll go once fake, once fake. If he doesn't do it the third time, he won't do it, which is a great rule to have, because now that person has thought, oh, they're setting this up. But yeah, so sometimes it's good to try something, you see the defenses, and now you can attack it with those defenses understood. When you are fighting adversaries and get to feeling snarled up in petty maneuvers, remember this rule of military science. While in the midst of the minutia, suddenly you shift to a large perspective. Changing to great or small is an intentional part of the science of the art of war. It is essential for warriors to seek this even in the ordinary consciousness of human life. This mentality is critical to military science, whether large or small scale. This concern should be given careful consideration. So, this is detachment. You have to detach. You can't get caught in the minutia, and you also can't get caught in the large scale. You have to be able to see both of them. And when you feel like you've spent too much time in one, time to back out and see the other one. When you start feeling bogged down, step back. Step back. Take the large perspective. He's got these 21 rules. These 21 rules to walk this path of aloneness. And we're going to go through them. 1, accept everything just the way it is. 2, do not seek pleasure. 3, do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling. 4, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. 5, be detached from desire your whole life long. 6, do not regret what you have done. 7, never be jealous. 8, never let yourself be saddened by a separation. 9, resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself or others. 10, do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. 11, in all things have no preferences. 12, be indifferent to where you live. Do not pursue the taste of good food. 14, do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. Number 15, do not act following customary beliefs. Do not collect weapons or practice weapons beyond what is useful. Well, some of us like weapons. Do not fear death. Number 18, do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs beyond your old age or for your old age. 19, respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help. Number 20, you may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor. And number 21, never stray